Hello everyone. Good morning. We'll wait for another 5 minutes and we'll start.
Would be good if people can switch on their videos if possible.
Hi everyone. Good morning. We are now ready to begin. On behalf of Institute of Actuaries of India, I would like to welcome you all to the second Saturday Summit. Today's session titled Actuarial Horizons: Exploring Diverse Career Paths, bringing together experienced voices from Mercer for a conversation focused on emerging opportunities, evolving roles, and other broader impact of actual thinking. Thank you all for joining us. And without further delay, I would like to invite Ms. Bani Dhir, the moderator for today's session, Director Actual Services at Mercer, to take the session forward. Over to you, Ms. Dhir.
Yeah, thank you, Rithi, and welcome everybody. Happy to have gotten this opportunity to interact with all of you. Rithi, can we share our screen?
Sure.
Okay, so how have we structured this entire session is that we'll first go over the career journeys for myself and the speakers for today, Nikesh and Parshwa. Post that, we'll give you some insights about the employee benefit domain. We'll also touch upon a bit on healthcare domain as such, and very briefly some high level on that, and then we'll talk about the various roles and opportunities that are available in actual domain in general. So we'll like to begin with my career journey. Riddhi, if you could just please change the slide. Okay, so as Riddhi mentioned, I'm Bani Dhir. I'm director at Mercer and based out of New Delhi. I'm really excited to share my journey with all of you today. So I've spent around 22 years turning data into decisions, as you can say, and I really love doing that. So as actuaries, we love playing with numbers, and today in our session, we'll try to show you how fun that can be. Um, in my career, my career kicked off in 2003 as an analyst at Genpact, wherein I was, aligned with the Swiss Re Insurance, primarily working in their reserving section and aligned to the health as well as the property and casualty domain. In 2008, I joined Apollo Munich Health Insurance to build their actuarial team from the scratch. And it was a great experience. While I was with Apollo Munich, I also spent 2 years at Munich in Munich Re, working with the Central Reserving Department. Primarily doing healthcare reserving. Uh, since 2002, which is the longest period with one organization, is that I've spent with Mercer, leading a team of around 100 actual students, just like you all, and working with clients all over the world. So as I mentioned earlier, so my specializations include health, insurance, property and casualty, and retirement benefits. And I really love working with data to make decisions, manage projects and teams as well. So my favorite part about this job is to see how our work makes a real difference to the lives of people. And so I would talk a bit more about the health insurance domain, and some of the work streams within that. Also talk about roles that you can explore as actuaries. But before that, I'd like to invite my colleagues Nikesh and Parshwa, who are also speakers for the day, to share their career journeys and also provide insights about employee benefit domain. So over to you, Nikesh.
Thanks, Bani. Yeah, so again, I've started my actual journey way back in 2009, right? So Bani mentioned 2003. Some of you were probably not born by that time, or were probably in your nappies when we started our actual journey, right? So we've seen the profession grow, kind of the industry evolve as we've kind of spent a number of years, right? So when we started out, so I'm a commerce graduate. At that point in time, in my final year, I was just trying to decide what my next step in terms of qualification should be. So MBA was a natural option coming from a commerce background. But then at that point in time, we came to know about actuarial science as a profession. I kind of tried to understand more about it in detail, and that really kind of excited me in terms of the opportunities and utilizing your maths and statistical skills and things like that, right? So that's how I started my actuarial journey. I completed a diploma course in actuarial science at that point in time. As per the overall curriculum, I kind of studied the entire CET series and simultaneously started appearing for exams. One small uh, kind of trivia I want to share about my actual profession. So when I went for the first time to the actual office, which was in Fort at that time point in time, they said that per attempt you can only there was a limit to kind of write just two or three actual exams. And I was like, why only two and three? I could do more. Right. And the person at the reception, she was very candid and she said, looking at your qualification, someone who's coming from a commerce background, I think you cannot do more than one. And I was like, oh, really? And then when I actually started studying, I realized how tough the papers are, how much dedication and effort is really required to clear your actual exams, right? So that is when reality struck, and I'm glad I kind of picked up something which is really complex, really enjoyable, really exciting, right? So that's how I kind of entered into my actual journey. So I studied for a couple of years. 2007-8 was when I started looking out for a job. Unfortunately, at that point in time, the market was not really great. Stock markets were down, and there's a slump across the industry. 2009, I finally landed up a job with JLT. So it's legacy JLT organization, which is known as Jardine Lloyd Thomas. So 2009 is when I joined JLT as an actuarial analyst, started to learn about the employee benefits domain. So basically, it's about pension schemes, and this was primarily for the UK markets. So in the UK, they have multiple pension schemes, which are known as defined benefit pension schemes. So I started my journey there, looking at numbers, doing liability calculations for individual members and for a scheme at large. Uh, Looking at funding positions, learning about Excel, learning about Microsoft Office tools, and things like that. So I was really lucky to kind of enter the team when we were in a growth phase, right? So within a couple of years, we expanded from a team of 5 to 7 to 20 to 25 odd colleagues. And learning kind of was really, really helpful. We got a lot of mentorship from the UK counterparts. Internally, we had a qualified actuary who was leading the team, so we got a lot of direction, a lot of mentorship, a lot of guidance in our initial phase, and that really helped, right? So I would always feel that the first 2 3 years in your journey are really really critical. You need to spend that time to understand the fundamentals, try and use your actual knowledge, what you've studied, try and relate it to work. And the required guidance really really helps, right? So since then I've had a really amazing time at JLT. 6 to 7 years back, JLT as an organization got acquired by Marsh McLennan. And so now I'm part of the Marsh McLennan entity, a group of companies. Mercer is one of the entities within the Marsh McLennan group, right? So there's Guy Carpenter, there's Marsh, there's Oliver Wyman, and then there is Mercer. So the employee benefits business within Mercer is where I'm aligned to. I've had a very exciting journey. I've taken on multiple roles over the last 15, 16 years. So starting from an actuarial analyst, I'm now leading the teams in the last 6 7 years, right? So I've interacted a lot with actuaries in the UK. I've had the opportunity to travel a couple of times, spend time with the consulting teams there, attend a couple of client meetings as well, right? So and then as part of my current role, where I'm leading more than 80 odd people, uh, again looking at strategies for the business, trying to look at how do we find opportunities to grow, how do we create more opportunities for the colleagues within my team and things like that, right? So it's been an exciting journey, and that's what has kept me kind of uh, tied up with one organization, right? So the trend obviously has changed. Currently in my team I have a lot of people who resign in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, because they want to grow fast, they want to kind of explore a lot of things. But I've been lucky because I got a lot of opportunities internally within the organization to grow, to expand my skills, and kind of uh, venture into different territories, right? So, and that's been my biggest uh, highlight of my 15-year odd journey. So it's exciting times. Again, employee benefits as a domain has a lot to offer. We'll talk about it in detail. But before we get there, I would probably hand it over to Parshva to talk about his journey.
Yep. Thank you, Nikesh. So I haven't started my actual journey that much in the past. So I am a recent graduate. So I've started my actual career in 2016. Right. So for me, I was always aligned to, become a CA because I have a couple of CAs in my family. But then I saw my sister study and I'm like, I won't be able to put in so much of efforts at one go. So then when thinking about what next, I came across actuarial science. So I was always, like I always enjoyed crunching numbers and going around analytical, like doing analytical questions. So when I heard of actuarial science, it actually interest, like I developed some interest towards it, and I started I took it up. Then, having cleared a couple of papers in the graduation itself, I was lucky enough to get a job at Deloitte. So I started in their financial risk advisory team. I worked on multiple projects around market risk and credit risk, having worked with many international as well as national clients. And after Deloitte, I was just looking for a job around 5 years back, and that's when I heard about the job at Mosor, and I always wanted to try something new as well because it was initial phase of my journey. So it's very important to to understand what all options are there. So having after I joined Mercer, so I joined in their UK valuations team from Mumbai, and I got trained on say multiple processes such as valuations, accountings, SOPs and so on, funding updates and so on. So so I started as an analyst in Mercer, and I've grown to become a manager here. So I manage a small team of a couple of individuals here. Uh, so I'm a part of the UK pensions team, and I'm involved with training, mentoring the new joiners on multiple processes, and also involved with helping shape the career paths for individuals reporting into me. So now I recently moved into the consulting support team a couple of months back, and now my role will completely change, and I will be working directly with the UK clients and helping the consultants based out of UK to send the work directly to the client. So yeah, that's how my journey has progressed. It's been a very exciting journey till now. It's literally been a J curve, it's always been up and up. Uh, so yeah, that's about me.
So thank you, Nikesh and Parshwa. Really exciting, and interesting to know your career journeys. And it's really also interesting to know the diverse career, spans everybody's had. Somebody 20 plus years and somebody 15 plus, and then someone like you've just started. So not just started, but yeah, uh, so is exploring the journey right now. So really nice. And now I'd request both of you to talk a little bit about employee benefit space. The products that are offered, the calculations, the methodologies, etc. And also one of the very important topics, technology, the role of AI. For any space, but in this case, particularly employee benefits. Nikesh.
Yeah. So,
Can we
part,
move to
part,
the next? Yeah. Can we move to the next slide? Yeah. So, employee benefits in general is, a very wide topic. So, there are multiple topics in it. So, say one is pensions, one is gratuity, one is leave encashment. So, typically, I am working with pensions that too catering to the UK geography. So, just to give you all a more highlight about the UK pension. So, there are multiple different types of valuations that we do. So one is the funding valuations. Now, what the purpose of funding valuation is? So it's a mandate in UK that every pension scheme which exists, we need to do a valuation for them every 3 years to understand what kind of assets and what kind of liabilities do they have. So depending upon the assets and the liabilities, the employer might need to make more contributions into the scheme to eliminate any deficit, if any. So that that is about funding valuations. So again, there are multiple different types of valuations. So one is accounting valuation, in which uh, the cost of the pension scheme to the employer is supposed to be quoted in their books of accounts as well. Right, so it forms a crucial part of the books of account, because it's like employee, like the pensions are usually usually a high liability to the employer somewhere. So to calculate that, we typically have a process annually set, and basis assumptions which we agree with the employer. So we have to make that reporting as well. Then there's a regulator. So even the regulator requires a different set of valuation, a different set of numbers. So so the benefits are again different when it comes to a regulatory valuation. So we need to perform that regulatory valuation as well, which is very important, because basis that the regulator decides what kind of a levy needs to be paid by the employer to uh, the regulator. Then there's an option to individuals, to take their pensions out of this scheme and move into some other scheme. So that is nothing but the individual calculation. So we perform that as well, as and when the requests come in. So those are usually performed at the recent market indices and at the using the best estimate assumptions. Other than that, we also do a lot of ad hoc work. So one is mortality analysis. So mortality analysis, we use different kinds of parameters. So, one is gender, one is age, one is postcodes, one is their salaries. And depending upon that, we determine what kind of mortality table should a scheme be using, and what relevant scaling factors are applicable to the scheme. So, yeah, that's about the employee benefits services.
So again, and just to simplify it for everyone, I think so. Any form of benefit, you need to try and kind of make some assumptions around how the future will look like, right? So you make assumptions around discount rates, you make a assumption around inflation and things like that, and then you have to kind of calculate the present value, right? So when one of the common things that we do as part of our actual journey is trying to quantify future risk, right? So again, whether it's an employee benefits domain or any other domain, what we are trying to do is just to try and calculate the present value of a future series of payments, right? So as an employer, I've committed to a certain benefit to a member of a pension scheme. I need to try and kind of calculate the present value of the future series of payments when they retire. So pension as a benefit typically comes into effect when an employee of an organization resigns or kind of reaches retirement age, sorry. So when you reach retirement, currently you are at age 20, your retirement age at 65. So how much benefits will you accrue from age 20 to age 65? And then when you reach age 65, what is the amount of pension that I need to pay until you survive, right? So that's how typically a pension scheme operates. Also, that two, three key stakeholders within a pension scheme. One is obviously the member who's the recipient of the benefit. Then there is an employer who's agreed to pay that benefit. And usually there are trustees who are there to protect the interests of the members, right? So these are the three parties, and then all of the services that Parsha mentioned are either directed towards the employer or towards the trustees or towards the employees. So in a nutshell, this is what typically happens. You calculate the present value of a series of payments for one individual member, which is an individual calculation. And when you do it cumulatively or accumulated for entire membership of the scheme, which could range from 500 members, 10,000 members, 50,000 members. That is when we look at it at a scheme level basis. And each scheme would have a set of liabilities, and then you would have a corresponding set of assets, right? So when you compare your assets and liabilities, you look at the funding position, which would either give you a surplus or a deficit. And then if there is a deficit, then you kind of agree an EMI plan, which is basically if you've taken a loan as an example, how would the EMI calculations work? Similarly, you try and calculate recovery plan payments for the employer to kind of pay and make good the deficit. Yes, Parsh.
Yeah. Uh, so yeah, like Nikesh mentioned, so pension is like a annuity. So the relevant skills and the relevant exams which are applicable for pensions are is firstly CM1, because like, so for example, after the retirement age, as we start an annuity, so we need to know the concepts around annuities. Now we discount the present value of that annuity to the current valuation date. So again, the concepts of calculating present value and discounting matter here. Now, we'll obviously have some assumption around a member dying, or member taking retirement, or member becoming ill. So those areas are covered are all covered in CM1. So CM1 is a very important paper to clear before to understand what pensions and in general what employee benefits would mean. Then we have CB1, which is accounts, right? So as I mentioned earlier, we have a lot of accounting disclosure also to which we need to prepare. So it's very important to understand, the concepts of accrual, the concepts of different ratios which we need to calculate, which we need to give to the regulator, how to prepare a balance sheet, how a P&L statement looks like. So these couple of papers become very important before entering into pensions. Now, other than that, obviously there's some weightage to understanding the investments side as well. So we work a lot around the discount rates, a lot around the inflation rates. Uh, Around what the hedging of the scheme's liabilities looks like versus the assets. So some additional knowledge around investments, and what how the investments of the scheme transition over time. So how, depending upon its maturity, depending upon its duration. So these concepts become very important to understand.
Okay, so in this section, we will focus on how tools and technology kind of plays an important role in our day-to-day lives and the nature of work that we do. As I had mentioned, right, so we've been around for a long, long time, and we've seen our processes evolve, we've seen our technology evolve, right? So when we started out, Excel and MS Office was like the real major set of tools that you were using extensively on a day-to-day basis. That is still relevant today, but at that point in time, coding skills and kind of setting up macro-enabled tools and all that was really, really important, right? So when I started out, we had to create a lot of our templates from scratch, right? So you had to kind of create your own versions. There were no standardized templates and things like that. But now obviously the world has evolved. Coding, again, it's not really an important skill that you need to know, because you use AI, and then you just need to know what you need to ask, and AI will kind of give you the code that you need, right? So again, it's evolved a lot. A few years back, there's a lot of discussion around blockchain and all that, right? And now everyone is talking about AI. So the world is evolving at a very, very rapid pace. You need to try and keep up pace with evolving technology, right? Because that is where the future is. And as large organizations, the focus is always on trying to reduce manual effort, trying to kind of add more value as intelligent people, as actuarial students, as qualified actuaries, rather than spending tasks on data related activities or low value added activities, right? So hence there's a lot of focus in terms of automating our processes using modern age technology and things like that, right? So for within the EB space also, there are a lot of modern tools available, right? So if I talk about the Indian employee benefit space, most of the valuation work, liability calculations happen on macro enabled tools, right? So you put in the data, you click on a macro and it will generate the numbers for you, right? So you change one assumption and it will give you a variety of results, right? So this is how you do sensitivity analysis and things like that. For a large organization like us, AI is a integral part of what we do on a day-to-day basis, right? So we have our own artificial intelligence platform. It can do a lot of things for you, right? So the multiple prompts, right? So I'm sure everyone's used Chat GPT. It's very similar to Chat GPT. There are multiple prompts. You can upload your own internal data. It will generate insights for you. As an example, if you want to create a presentation, I want to know more about the employee benefit space. It will give you a lot of content that already exists within the system. So I think using technology, keeping pace with evolving technologies is really, really important for all of us, right? So again, I would always encourage people to read a lot, try and kind of build your own networks, try and kind of keep pace with whatever is kind of happening outside or within the industry, because that's always going to kind of be a major part in your professional journey, right? So whether it's Chat GPT, whether it's Grok, whether it's any other kind of apps or technology that you're using, try and develop expertise, right? So uh, as students, while the technical knowledge is really, really important, I think these other elements also kind of add a lot more weightage to your profile. So it always kind of gives you an edge over your competitors, over other students, other colleagues, right? So try and keep a pace, try and kind of enroll for courses. There's a lot of opportunity to kind of enroll for free courses available online, things like that. Invest in yourself. I would always suggest, it's really, really important, right? So practicing Excel, when we conduct interviews, we do try and
Is Nikesh, is there an issue with his internet? Parshwa, am I
Yeah, I
audible?
think I think there's an issue with Nikesh. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Uh, so in any case, I think Nikesh has covered the importance of technology and also to keep yourself abreast with what's happening. So it's interesting actually how how everyone perceives AI to be changing the future. So can I ask the audience to just show their hand? So just raise your hand in case you feel that AI would have a definitive, and a significant impact in future or in the actual domain. So audience, can you raise your hand? Okay. So I do see at least 8 people
15.
thinking that, yeah. That's really interesting. I think many of you or most of you think that AI would have an impact. Would anyone want to take just a shot and share a bit about it? Your thought process. Nobody knows exactly. We are also learning, and the entire world is learning right now. No one knows what sort of an impact it will have, but we know that something will happen. So, would you like to share your thoughts on what you think or how you think AI will impact the actuarial domain? Anybody would like to unmute
Yatish has
yourself
switched
and
on his
speak?
camera. Yatish, you want to speak? Then unmute and
So he switched off the camera.
no, no worries.
Okay,
You
okay.
can also use the chat if you want to kind of
Yeah,
share
just
any thoughts. Just use the
right.
chat option.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, you don't have, you can share your thoughts there as well. We'll read it out. Okay, so I think we can move to the next section, Nikesh.
So, can we move to the next slide?
Next.
Okay.
Yeah. Uh, so I'll talk about the checks which we perform before, like during any of the work. So I think in any actual work, I would say the checking the reliability of the data, or checking what results are, if they make sense or not, become very essential. So, as maybe be it insurance industry, be it pensions, be it any investment. So we typically working on very large data sets usually. So like Nikesh mentioned, the membership count which we work on can go up to 50,000. So in that case, ensuring that the data which you've received is reliable and is of, the is reliable and relevant becomes very important. So, as actuaries, we tend to spend a lot of time performing the checks, be it on the data or be it on the end result of the work, right? So typically in pension, in UK pensions, as I mentioned, we perform a valuation, say maybe every 3 years. Right. So, just to give you all an understanding of a couple of checks that we do. So, say we perform a check on the previous valuation data compared to the current valuation data. So, we have to ensure that a field like a date of birth or a gender, it should not change for any of the members, right? Because we don't expect that to change usually. Then, say pension. So pension payment can increase in line with inflation. So when we are coming, so when we get the data for the current valuation, we have to ensure that the pension increases compared to the previous valuation are somewhere close to the inflation itself. Then there's a check on salary increase. Now, salary increase also has to be within a reasonable limit. So it has to be, say, around for 3 years, you can say something somewhere around 40 to 50% in Indian markets is still okay. Anything above that would raise concerns. So your reliability and liability can only be high if the data which you've received is of high quality. So we perform such checks to ensure that the results that we are quoting to the client are reliable, and they it can be used to be submitted to the regulator. Now, to perform our valuations, we have our own model, but each model has its own limitations. So to ensure that the liability which is being calculated by the model is accurate, what we do is we pick up a couple of members, say members with the highest liabilities, or across different genders, across different sections, across different categories. And for those members, we are calculating liabilities from first principles. So, how Nikesh mentioned the life cycle of what pension, how pension is calculated. So depending upon your service and your salary, you get the pension till the NRA. At pension at retirement date, then you apply the annuity, depending upon when you expect the person to survive, and that is discounted back to the valuation date. So we perform those things for those couple of members, and we check how their liability is compared to the model calculated liability. Now, there has to be a certain threshold within which that difference should fall. Any difference above that threshold, we investigate more. So many times we also, find out the limitation of the model. So, being a model, it has its own limitations. So it cannot say perform a couple of calculations. It cannot perform something accurately. So we are made aware of that, and those new discoveries keep on happening when we are working every day. Now, audit trail is very important. So, the work, like any work, be it any industry, it has to be that good that, if someone new is coming into the, stepping into your role, he or she is able to understand from where things are coming and from how things are happening. So we as an organization emphasize a lot on maintaining clean and reliable audit trails. A lot of weightage is given to audit trails so that the work is easy to follow, and anyone who say reviewing the work or for their own checks, they're able to understand what has happened. Now, when we move to the end of any of the work, we perform checks on a different scale. So we are typically checking how the results are looking, like how the results are this time compared to the last time. So, given a few couple of changes, when you account for, say, maybe the high inflation or say maybe the high mortality, when you've accounted for those things, ideally the results should tie in. So that is the checks which we do towards the end of the work. Yeah. Nikesh, if you want to add something to Nikesh, you're on mute.
So again, we've been talking about AI and things like that, right? So one of the things that we always kind of advise is that any work that we do, any technology that you use, there's always room to use your judgment, use your actual skill sets, right? So when we talk about data also, it's important to not just blindly rely on what information has been provided. There are certain checks, right? As actuaries, I think our natural inclination is to look at it independently, try and see if the numbers look reasonable, right? So anything that you do, whether it's liability calculations, whether it's data management, or looking, creating reports and all that, I think using judgment, taking a step back, reviewing the numbers independently is really, really critical. And again, that is what differentiates an average performer from a really good performer, right? Are you able to do your own independent sense checks? Can you justify the numbers that are being calculated, right? So as I mentioned, we have a lot of cutting edge technology, a lot of lab T calculation software and models and things like that, which will make your life a lot more easier. But again, the challenge lies in understanding, interpreting, and kind of creating the right insights from the numbers that the software will provide, right? So using your actual judgment is really, really key. And doing these reasonableness checks, sense checks is extremely critical to kind of ensure that the numbers that are providing are reasonable and accurate to a certain degree, right? So any questions? I think again, if we want to just pause, and if there are any questions, you can put it in the chat. We'll probably just wait for 10 seconds before we proceed. Okay, let's proceed. So again, so this slide just highlights how, as an actual professional, if you're working in a pension scheme, what are some of the phases, what are some of the stages that you get involved with, right? So within our organization, as an example, you get to be involved right from a very early stage in the planning process. There are multiple opportunities for you to directly interact with qualified actuaries. So whether it's agreeing the scope of work, agreeing budgets, agreeing timelines, agreeing an approach, you have to kind of start those conversations with the scheme actuary and the consultant, who are kind of eventually going to present it to the end client. There's a lot of emphasis on deriving assumptions. So again, the multiple assumptions, a mixture of financial and demographic assumptions that we use as part of a pension scheme valuation. So when I talk about financial assumptions, you look at deriving the discount rate. Again, when you look at deriving the discount rate, need to look at the maturity of the scheme. You need to look at your investment strategy and things like that, and then kind of add levels of prudence to your discount rate. Similarly, you make assumptions around future inflation, how your uh, how are your multiple inflation indexes expected to grow over the years. Uh, Initially, when we started out, we were using single equivalent rates. Now the focus is obviously to use yield curves, right? So most of the calculations that we do now are based on forward rates. Uh, and then when I talk about demographics, you need to make multiple assumptions related to mortality, how long an individual is expected to survive. Does your mortality differentiate between males and females? Then there are elements of how many people do you expect to be married, not married. Then how many people you expect to take lump sums when they retire rather than opt for annuity payment payout. So multiple financial and demographic assumptions. Data checks, I think Pasha's covered it, right? So we get a lot of data. Uh, Typically, so there's some small schemes which will have a membership of 10 to 50 members only. And then there are some very large schemes where the membership is in the excess of 1 lakh, 2 lakhs, 3 lakh, 5 lakh members as well, right? So they're very large clients that we handle within our organization, and the membership is really, really very large. And again, based on the size of the membership, you need to try and make judgment calls, because there are budgets allocated to everything, right? So again, you need to use your judgment in terms of how much time do you spend on each activity within the process. there's a concept of materiality, right? So again, as actual professions, materiality is something that we really critical, right? So if a liability is off by 100 rupees, do you really investigate, or you try and say that okay, in the wider scheme of things, 100 rupees doesn't really matter, right? And I'm okay to kind of proceed and not investigate further. So again, as you grow with experience, you are able to take those calls, use your judgment to try and kind of understand where is it that you need to spend more time. Once you have the assumptions, once you have the data, you kind of load it into the softwares, you kind of generate liability numbers, you kind of do your calculations, and then again, just doing sense checks on the liability numbers. I had calculated a liability for a member 1 year back, which was 100 rupees. Now I'm getting a liability of 200. Seems odd, right? So you wouldn't expect the liability to double in a 1 year time frame. So then what has gone wrong? You try and investigate, right? So there are some global checks that you do at a scheme level, and then there are some individual checks that you perform just to kind of ensure that broadly whatever numbers you're expecting are in line with what the software or the model is kind of throwing out. So really important to use your actual judgment, actual skills, try and kind of analyze the results and kind of ensure that it is fit for purpose. Once you've done all that, you apply changes in the assumption, right? So as Parshva mentioned, the work that we do, typically the frequency varies, right? So for certain regions, the frequency is annual. So US as an example, the valuations are done on an annual basis. But if you're working for the UK region, then the valuations are done once in 3 years, right? So again, a lot of things could change within that 1 year or a 3 year period. So you need to try and understand what changes have happened, whether it's in terms of membership, whether it's terms of assumptions, whether it's terms of scheme benefit changes and things like that. And then you do a detailed reconciliation and kind of again ensure that the current value of liabilities, the current value of assets are reasonable. And then the overall funding position is what you would typically expect. Once you've done that, again, there are multiple layers of review that happen just to ensure that the numbers are accurate, the quality of work is up to the required standard. The scheme actually would also review the numbers, sign it off, would ask you multiple questions saying that this doesn't look right. Can you please explain why a certain approach has been followed and things like that. And then once everything's been agreed, you try and kind of work on the final reports that would go out to the clients. Then again, as Parsha mentioned, uh, there are team members who part of consulting teams. They would be a part of client meetings where the actuary would present the numbers and the financial positions and things like that, and decisions related to funding position, related to any scheme benefit changes that may be required, any regulatory adherences, compliance activities that may be required, and things like that. So these are the kind of discussions that happen in a client meeting. Sometimes the client might ask for additional sets of results, additional kind of details around member calculations, around benefit changes, what could be the corresponding impact on the funding positions and things like that. So that's like the most exciting phase where you're actually working with the end client, trying to just understand their thought process, answering their queries and things like that. And again, a lot of the clients would have their own sets of trustees and own sets of independent actuaries, right? So it's not that the client is not really qualified. They would have their own team, and that really kind of makes it very challenging, right? So you have to be very clear, very thorough in terms of your preparation, your understanding of the numbers, your understanding of the reports and things like that. Once all that has been done, then there is this a compliance activity. The actuary would sign off the numbers, client would sign off the final reports, and then you kind of proceed, right? So the entire life cycle is really exciting. uh, as an analyst, you get multiple opportunities to interact with the scheme actuaries. If a part of the consulting team, you interact with the end client as well, right? So if you're working in the India consulting market, you work directly with the clients. You kind of chase them for data. You kind of agree assumptions with them. You're part of multiple discussions and things like that. So within the employee benefit space, I think there are multiple opportunities to use our actual knowledge, work closely with qualified actuaries, work closely with the end clients, uh, kind of develop your skills in terms of data management, software, technology, uh, look at both the liability side and the investment side as well, right? So kind of you get exposure to multiple facets, and a lot of the things that you've studied, we spoke about earlier, right? So it's directly very relevant. So there are higher papers which specifically focus on the pensions domain. SP4, as an example, is kind of focused on employee benefits. It's really exciting in terms of studying as well. Bani, Parshwa, want to add anything here?
So, Nikesh, I think you've covered it. And also, in the interest of time, maybe we can just move forward
Yeah,
to the
yeah,
last
let's do
slide
that.
in EB. Yeah.
Right.
So,
Yeah, sorry. So, I think most of you would have heard what an actual control cycle is, right? Now, an essential part of an actual control cycle is experience analysis. Now, what experience analysis is like, so say you can relate it with any of the actual work, right? So you would have expected, say, at last valuation or last year maybe, you had expected something, but not necessarily that will turn out to be the case, right? So that analyzing that and understanding what has changed and how has it impacted, that is experience analysis. Now, so as in like particularly in pensions, the stakeholders are very much interested in how the surplus of the pension scheme has changed when we look at it from a last valuations or a last year's point of view. So Nikesh covered all the assumptions, right? So he typically mentioned about the different financial assumptions, different demographic assumptions. So understanding what has changed. So we're seeing a lot of high inflation rates right now. So which will lead to a increase in liability, which will lead to a decrease in your surplus. Similarly, if there were more mortality, more withdrawals, more retirement, so these things will have an impact on surplus, and you will need to investigate more. And if the assumption which we are making in the scheme is not relevant anymore, the actuaries will take it up with the trustees and agree that going ahead we should maybe change the assumption and tweak it to this rather than keeping it what was done last time. So that more or less is the analysis of surplus, and which is a very essential part to any actuarial work, which helps determine what the current trend is and what should we assume going ahead.
okay. So thank you, Parshwa. And let us move to a next domain that we mentioned earlier, which is healthcare. So we can move to the next slide, please. And here I'd like to keep it a little interactive because healthcare is something which everybody is, aware of. All of you may have an insurance policy, your parents may be having. So like to hear from you, what is your, perception, or what is your understanding about a health insurance? What does a health insurance typically do? If you could just put your thoughts in the chat. Okay, in the meanwhile, as you would, gather your thoughts and share it over chat, I'd like to mention that in very simple terms, and I'll keep it very simple. Health insurance is actually a system where which helps people to pay their medical costs, right? So a doctor visit or surgeries, a person who buys a health insurance is able to pay for those costs because the risk, overall risk, is shared across many people. So in very simple terms, that is health insurance, and that is what it does. And as actuaries, we use numbers to keep these health insurance policies running smoothly. And how do we do that? Moving on to the next slide, we will share some of the major work streams a health actuary is involved in. So if you see, a health actuary is involved in reserving, pricing, as well as claims analytics. And you would have heard a lot about it, I think, the erstwhile CT6 exam, and Parshva, you could correct me. So the new one, which has a lot of information on runoff triangles, chain ladder method, and all of those to calculate reserves, is what is used in calculating reserves for any insurance company. As it is, we'll do the runoff triangles and calculate all those parameters. Again, in simple terms, reserving is a method to figure out how much money an insurance company needs to save right now to pay the future claims. So it's just like planning for some unexpected expenses in future, right? Uh, if we talk about pricing, pricing is again very simply put, it is calculating the premiums that we pay on an insurance policy. So it is evaluating the cost of insurance plans, which is fair to the customers, so that they it is reasonable enough for them to pay for the premiums to pay. Uh, it is also fair to the company because eventually they need to earn money and cover the future claims, right? So the role of an actuary is to balance both the aspects. Uh, Finally, claims analytics is looking at the data, a huge data set that we have from all the claims. This is to figure out the patterns that we see in our data, so to see what treatments are common, or what are the common diseases, so that the insurance company can use that data to make their existing plans better or to come up with some new plans. So that helps in innovation as such. And I think in future this is the area where AI will play a major role to analyze the millions of data set that exists with any insurance company. Okay, so I'd like to hear from you all, or you can just share in the chat that why do you think looking at the claims data improves insurance? And I've actually answered a bit about it a bit earlier, but if you would like to share thoughts, how can looking at the huge data sets improve our insurance plans? Anyone? Just a guess. I mean, we're not judging you, right? Okay, so in any case, I just answered that earlier. It just helps us see the trends, the future. So analyzing the past data to come up with future trends is what this claims data analytics uh, is all about. So this is on health insurance. Any questions as such?
So I'm guessing a lot of you would be involved in terms of buying health insurance products for your parents, family members, right? So how do you compare, right? So do you try and compare in terms of multiple products that are available within the market? What kind of covers? It's quite complex, right? So even we also struggle sometimes to understand which product is like the best fit for us. Do you do anything in terms of using your actual knowledge to try and understand if this is the policy that I need to buy compared to any other policy? Anyone who can share a real life example thing that I had to buy medical insurance, this is what I did.
And we did have some thoughts earlier on the chat.
No.
Prevention is better than cure
Absolutely.
is a good good way to put it. Okay, so thank you. We can move on to our next section and the last one as such. So the one that we'd mentioned, earlier, that we talking about the opportunities that are available or that are there in the actuarial domain. It's not just technical aspect that we were just talking about. It's not just that. There are various other things, of course, as you and when we shared our career journey, we mentioned that we all started as analysts, so we have to understand and have that basic understanding of any domain we pick, and the processes day in day out. And then after some years of experience, we can all take up various other kinds of roles that are available. So moving on to the next slide, uh, we've yeah, Riddhi, we can move on to the next one. So here we've tried to segregate the overall, the types of roles that exist into some categories. Uh, so of course, number crunching lies at the base of it. So for example, I started as a technical expert, doing reserving and pricing. And then now I'm in a leadership role, which actually shows that how you can grow in this field, right? So as technical experts, you build models using math, you do coding to solve problems, and you just need to love data as such, right? Uh, as consultants, the role would be to give advice to companies. We have, and this is where you also have your exam, which is the CP3 communication paper, which helps us understand. I mean, the people sitting in the companies are not actuaries, not all are actuaries, right? So you have to explain to them whatever you've derived in very simple language. And that's the role of the consultants. You have to be great communicators. Project management is a very important aspect, and I think everybody in their career as an actuarial professional, would pick up this theme sometime in future. And you have to finish projects, you have to lead teams and maneuver resourcing around to be able to deliver the work to the clients, to the onshore teams. So this is ideal for you if you love teamwork, right? Client management is tied into the consultant role, wherein you work with clients, you understand their needs, and then deliver what is expected. Finally, and I mean, it's not actually the end, but yeah, leadership is a role where you lead big teams, you guide student actuaries as well as the other as well as clients and companies, so that we can make some smart choices based on our number crunching abilities. So here I'd like to know from all of you, which role sounds most exciting to you right now? I mean, you've just started your career or are about to. So which of these roles sounds exciting? You just type your answer there. Okay, consulting.
Check now.
Nice.
Multiple answers, which is good to see.
Yes, nice. Okay, so great. Actually, there's a role for everybody, right? You just have to find the best fit for yourself. And these paths will help you use your skills to make an impact in the actuarial field. That is what I feel, and I'll request Nikesh and Parshwa to share their thoughts as well.
Yeah,
And
I
really
think
nice. Everyone has different
exactly,
opinions.
Yeah.
which is great to see, right? So even within the teams that we manage, it's not that everyone has the same aspiration, the same ambition. People want to kind of, everyone is different and everyone wants to kind of build their capabilities or grow within different kinds of roles and different kinds of fields, right? So that's what we are also observing here, right? So it's really kind of just aligns to what we've observed within our teams as well. Uh, it's good, right? So again, I think at an early stage of your career, you don't really need to kind of finalize or formalize this is what I want to do. I think as you start exploring, you will understand how things work within the industry, what kind of opportunities exist and things like that. And it will kind of help you kind of in your decision making as well, right? So I would always suggest that don't try and kind of finalize or kind of make a decision very early in your career, saying that this is where I want to end up with, because you never know, the world is like changing rapidly. What kind of excites you today might not excite you after a couple of years, right? So keeping your outlook very open, kind of looking at multiple opportunities, kind of keep exploring different avenues, and you never know, right, where will you end up eventually. And as I said, right, so typically when I started, I was always like, okay, I'm an actual student. The only thing that I can do is technical work, but that's definitely not the end of the road. There are multiple opportunities elsewhere as well, right? So if you have the technical knowledge combined with business awareness, combined with soft skills like communication and things like that, I think it's the all-round package that organization would look for. And that is like a really differentiating factor, right? So we've had qualified actuaries who've been CEOs of very, very large organizations as well, right? So as an example, the ex Mercer CEO herself was a qualified actuary, right? So it speaks volumes about the kind of growth you can have as a qualified actuary, right? So with your technical expertise, you are an expert in looking at financials, you are an expert looking at balance sheet, you are an expert in looking at kind of numbers and things like that, right? So that really always gives you an edge compared to a normal MBA, who's probably more focused on the business side, on the project management side, but has limited awareness in terms of numbers and risk management and things like that, right? So again, multiple opportunities. The world is changing, and maybe it's a good time for us to kind of move on to the next slide as well. Yeah, so again, the world is evolving, and we've seen multiple new kinds of roles, multiple opportunities for budding actuaries, right? So banking, investments, financial markets. There is a role. I think it's about you as an individual. How do you market your skills? How do you kind of relate your actual studies to the industry? How are you able to kind of solve problems for any business? I think there are multiple opportunities for each individual, right? So again, depending on your area of interest, you can explore multiple avenues in today's world, right? So we've seen a lot of actual students kind of pursuing courses with respect to data analytics, data management, data mining, developing skills with AI as well, right? So I think it's about having multiple diverse skills rather than just one skill set. Uh, One of our senior actuaries mentioned that actuaries without AI knowledge might not exist, but actuaries with AI knowledge will definitely succeed in the profession, right? So again, while we're focusing a lot on AI, it's about keeping pace with evolving technology, trying to develop new skills, right? So you, as kind of youngsters, you definitely need to focus on investing in yourself. The next 5, 10, 15 years is really, really, really going to be important, right? But once you hit 30s, it becomes difficult, right? So you will, your professional life will undergo a change, your personal life will undergo a change. You will have aging parents, you will have young families to take care of, right? So the time that you spend on investing in yourself will reduce. But these are the early years where you need to kind of try and maximize developing on your skills, maximize investing in yourself, right? So networking is really important. I'm not sure how many of you attended the GCA, but any such networking opportunities, the institute does a really great job in terms of creating these platforms. We had like more than 1,000, 1,200 people being at the recent GCA as well, right? So again, don't miss out on these opportunities. Try and talk to people. Curiosity is really, really important, right? So reaching out to industry professionals, reaching out to people, talking to them, asking questions. I think don't be afraid. No question is a stupid question or a silly question, right? So don't feel shy. I think ask questions. Try and read a lot. Try and read about evolving technologies. Try and read about the profession, and I'm sure each one of you will do really, really well.
Yeah, and we do have a question here. So can you give a real life example where you made a blunder and it was corrected, and whom did you go to for resolving the issue? Nikesh, Parshwa, would
I
you
think
like to go first?
we've all made blunders, right? So no one can say with confidence that I've had a perfect life. I've never made mistakes, right? So whether it's personal life related decisions, whether it's professional decisions, we've always made blunders. A very small example, and maybe Parsha can share if there's anything else. So there's an actual valuation where I was working with, and we have the books of accounts. So we have a account sheet that we get from the client where it has the list of different asset categories, and there's something known as net current assets as well, which is basically bank balance. Okay, and it was like out of 500k of assets, there's also 50k of net current assets that was there. It was mentioned on a separate page within the PDF report that we had received. So we kind of, when I kind of did the number crunching, kind of prepared the reports and all that, I missed that 50k of bank balance assets, and the actuary who was reviewing the work also missed it, and he went to the client meeting, and obviously the asset value was understated by 50k, and the client was very prompt in highlighting that mistake, right? So the usual tendency, if you've done 99 things correct, no one will talk about it, but if you've done one thing wrong, people will try and find it out first, right, and point it out first. So the client pointed it out. It was a bit of an embarrassing situation for the scheme actuary. He came back from the client meeting and he dropped me a note saying that we missed out on 50k of assets. I felt like kicking myself. Feel free to do the same. Okay, so it was embarrassing, right? It was just copy pasting a number from a report into the Excel and then into the report. But we did make that mistake, and I made that mistake. The checker made that mistake, and the actuary also made that mistake, right? And it could lead to an embarrassing situation, but it's okay, right? You need to take it in a stride. It's not the end of the road. Mistakes do happen. The nature of work we do is not easy at all. Everyone makes mistakes. You need to just take it with a pinch of salt.
So I think it's more important, so mistakes do happen, but what are you doing to prevent those mistakes going ahead? That is what will play a key role. So we've had multiple cases, where mistakes were made, but as an organization, we have our own committee wherein we, get onto calls, discuss with other senior peoples to ensure that, what checks can be put in place to ensure these mistakes are not repeated again. So that's how we typically appreciate a mistake and grow with it to to ensure there's no repetitive mistakes happening and we are delivering high quality work to our clients.
Well, one thing that we ever say is never trust anyone, right? So sometimes what we do is any work that we do goes typically through two steps. Someone processes the work and someone checks it, right? So even if it's someone very experienced who's processed the work, don't trust them. You need to trust your independent sense checks, reasonableness checks, right? So that's how you need to operate to kind of ensure that there are no errors, or you kind of are able to identify any errors at an early stage.
Thank you, Nikesh. Thank you, Parshwa. I think awesome, guide tips from you. We do have a question and somebody's raised a hand. So
CB3,
if you would like to, yeah, and then
maybe
we'll go to
we
the
can take
question
the
from Gayatri.
CB3 question.
But
Maybe we
Bhuvan,
can take the,
yeah.
yeah.
So Bhuvan, would you like to unmute yourself and ask? I see Bhuvan has raised hand, but I think he's stuck now. Okay, so Gayatri's question is around CB3 and how is this, why is this paper important and how do we go about clearing it, Parshwa?
Yeah. So ultimately we are all working in businesses, right? So uh, even though say we are working more on the analytical side, it's still a business to run. It's very keen to understand what you've budgeted for and how much you're ending up spending. So that's why, Gayatri, I think it's important to understand, what happens in a business, how do you manage it, and ultimately how can you show your profitability to the from your department to the uh, company as a whole. So yeah, and important points to clear it. So I was in the older version of it where we had that game theory and
CB9,
the
yeah.
project to clear and not a paper. But I think it's important to understand. So be it any paper, it's important to understand the concepts. And if you understand the concepts from the first principles, I think be it any question that comes around it, you will be able to understand, comprehend it, and answer it in a fairly reasonable manner. So I think understanding the concept is crucial to clearing any papers.
And I think practical application is really the key, right? So when we conduct interviews, we kind of we've interviewed so many candidates with who have cleared a lot many papers in a very short duration, but they struggle when you ask them to relate it to practical real life example, right? So something very similar to like a CM1 simple annuity calculations, people struggle because I think again, and it's a function of the focus not being on kind of developing the skill and understanding it fundamentally, uh, but just on clearing the exam, right? So if you try and focus on just clearing the exam, you can probably do it successfully, but then in a professional environment and a work environment, you might struggle because your fundamentals are not very clear, right? So again, whenever you study for any exams, I think it's important to just try and focus on the fundamentals, on the concepts, try and see how can I relate it to a real life situation and things like that, right? So that's like a really key aspect that we assess individuals when at the time of recruiting as well. There's
So
a
we, yeah,
question on work-life
yeah,
balance. Want to
go ahead.
talk about
Yeah,
it,
work
Bani?
life. Yeah, I think, I mean, putting in extra hours or hard work is not going to disrupt your work-life balance as such. I mean, that is something that it is just, it comes from within. And in the initial years, you have that drive and passion to learn. So, just maybe focusing on exams and also learning while you take up your job is not going to disrupt your personal life in any case. And now in current scenario, the companies are offering a lot of flexibility as well. There's hybrid working, so you work from home and you work from office as well. And then there are a lot of benefits that are available in the organization. So I do not foresee any challenge in maintaining a perfect work-life balance, even
I,
in your initial years.
I always think work-life balance is like a very subjective thing, right? So what sounds like a work-life balance to you might not be the right balance for someone else, right? So again, it's a personal choice. I think it all depends on what your priorities are, right? So if you're very focused towards work, towards exams, towards developing your skills, you will not think about work-life balance, right? So it depends, but someone might have different priorities on the personal front, right? And you would want to spend more time there, right? So irrespective of what stage of your career you are at, I think you'll always have that question in terms of work-life balance, right? So I would always think it's a personal choice in terms of how do you want to kind of manage your own individual careers. But from an organization standpoint, as Bani mentioned, right, there's a lot more focus now, especially post-COVID, in terms of ensuring employee well-being and ensuring that uh, kind of the working hours are limited and that there's not a lot of pressure and there's a lot of support that organizations provide if you're going through stress and things like that, right? So again, as an individual, you can avail a lot of those facilities, I think. And again, building that network also really helps, right? So you would have phases where you're going through stretch and going to stress, but again, if you have a good network of people, you can always discuss your problems and kind of reach out.
So there's a question, Nikesh, if you like to take up first. How does market treat a CA with 4 years of experience vis-a-vis an actual professional with few exams cleared?
I think it's difficult, right? So again, it depends on what uh, an organization is looking for. Obviously, this qualified chartered accountant comes with a skill set which is really, really good. But again, it depends on what kind of role are you applying for. And then I think, and again, something that we try and assess as part of the interview process is what is your long-term plan or aspiration? Are you clear in your head in terms of what do you really want to do, right? So as a real life example, we've hired a couple of people who were qualified as chartered accountants and were also on their actual journey. Uh, 1 year into the system, they realized that this is not what I want to do, and I would want to go back and kind of pursue CA as a profession, right? So again, it's if you are confused, it doesn't really help. It doesn't help you. It doesn't help the organization as well, right? So I think you need to be very clear. After at this point in time, you need to be clear in your mind in terms of whether it's the actual journey that you want to pursue or whether it's a CA chartered accountancy journey that you want to pursue. In the long run, I think both will help you, right? As I mentioned, right, if you want to take up a leadership role, if you are a chartered accountant, your understanding of the balance sheet, taxation, PNL will add a lot of value. And if you have actual skill sets, then nothing like it, right? So it's again a mixture, and what do you want to really do, right? So, but as a recruiter, I would always try and understand what the long-term aspiration is, right? So when we hire someone, we try and look at it from a long-term standpoint, not like a 6 month or a 12-month duration, right? So that is what we'll try and judge first.
Yeah,
Not
Nikesh,
sure if
well said.
that answers your question, Gautam.
Yeah, well said, Nikesh. And I also, echo that because I feel it is all about your aspiration and not what market treats, because there is place for every profession in the industry. So CA would have their requirement and actuaries would have, their requirement. So it's all about your interest and passion, what you want to pursue.
Yep. Any other questions from anyone?
And actually, with few papers cleared and FRM, have a good career ahead. And what are the opportunities available with only two uh, papers cleared?
See,
So,
again, yeah,
yeah,
Parshwa, go ahead.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Parth.
yeah. So, see, having cleared two papers, see, you get an so typically if you say cleared CM1, you get a lot of insights about what the key principles of an actuarial work are, right? So you get exposure to annuities, get exposure to discounting and calculating present value. So that's one aspect. But uh, when you basically typically start your journey in say with any firm, you have to ensure you keep on clearing more papers to get that a deeper understanding of where you're working and what you're doing. And so along with work you always have that option. So given that our profession is designed in such a good manner that you can always continue your work and clear papers. So, and obviously getting more experience in your career obviously helps a lot to clear your papers ahead as well, because you understand the concepts very deeply, and it's very you can relate a lot more to what you're studying. So that helps. And FRM, obviously, it's again a risk management, like a course around risk management. So even that has its complementary knowledge with actuarial science. So I think, be it any degree, but if you're passionate enough to clear your actuarial papers with your work, there'll always be a good career for you. And as Nikesh mentioned, as Bani mentioned, there are multiple other opportunities as well. So there's a leadership role, there's a client management role. So it again all depends upon what you want to do, how you want to shape your career. So depending upon that, you will have that exposure to, do you want to clear more papers, or do you want to focus on something else? Do you want some other skills you want to acquire? So yeah.
I think it's important to understand there's a difference between getting a job and a long-term career, right? So with two papers, three papers, you can get a job. But if you want to really have a long enriching career within the actual profession, I think don't give up on your actual exams. It's important, if you are in the journey, try and kind of reach the end, right? Try and kind of qualify as an actuary, because then obviously then the kind of opportunities that you get are multiple. If for various reasons you are not able to kind of complete that entire journey, you will still can have a long enriching career. But I think at this point in your actual journeys, the focus should definitely be on setting targets, saying that this is where I want to kind of qualify as an associate, and this is the target in terms of qualifying as an actuary, right? Because you need to have that focus, and then kind of back that up with performance at work, and then you'll really have a very good career ahead. So two papers or four papers doesn't really matter. It depends again role to role and organization to organization. But yeah, I think the focus should be on kind of clearing more and more papers. And organizations would kind of provide you a lot of support, whether it's in form of leaves, whether it's form of reimbursements, whether it's in form of increments, right? So there's a lot of support that most organizations would provide you. So once you get a job, don't try and kind of lose sight of your actual qualification.
Yeah,
There's a
and there
question on
is.
internships as well, right? So again, uh, there are multiple internship opportunities available. Can you do justice and can you take out time for work, right? So if you want to work for 4 6 hours in a day along with your studies, there are opportunities available across multiple organizations, right? So again, are you able to strike that balance? Are you able to devote that amount of time? Is something that you need to decide. But otherwise, first year, second year, there are we've had interns in the first years and second years of graduation as well, right? So
So shifting to complete work from home after internship, would that hinder the learning? It actually depends on company policy. But if you ask my, opinion on it, I'd say there are benefits of working from office because you get to meet your colleagues, your seniors, and learn a lot from them in a face-to-face setting. In the initial years, it may be a little difficult to be sitting in some other corner of the country and interacting. Of course, we have Zoom, Teams, we have various other channels, but interacting in person does make a difference.
yeah. I would just feel the point about networking and all that. Uh,
Mm.
You can manage your work remotely, working from home, but you can't really build your networks in a virtual environment, right? So you need to experience office space. Unless you talk to people face to face, a lot of your skill development will be impacted, is what I feel, right? So personally, I'm a big advocate of working from office. Everyone needs flexibility. We also enjoy the flexibility that we have. But yeah, I think not completely going to office is something that personally I wouldn't really recommend.
There's one question. Okay, so how to crack first job and what skills we need to master? Nikesh, you'd like to, because you hire a lot of freshers, you would like to answer that
Yeah,
one?
I think so. Some of it we've already covered, right? So it's one is whatever you studied technically, any exams that you've cleared, you need to be thorough, right? Because if I look at your CV and it says CM1 cleared, I will obviously try and ask you questions about CM1, right? So, and the practical application as well. So, try and prepare. I think one of the things that we see a lot of candidates lacking is the level of preparation. If you are applying for a job, if you have an interview scheduled, I think you need to put in that level of effort. So, I, as a recruiter or an interviewer, I need to see the seriousness that you've come to an interview prepared, you've done your basic due diligence, right? So, reading about the company, looking at the job description, having a good understanding of what the role is, uh, and a very clear mindset in terms of this is what I've studied, this is what I want to do. I think is really, really important, right? So technically, you would have cleared a lot of papers, but I think these are elements that any recruiter would try and look at. And if you kind of if you're not prepared, if you're not clear in your mind, I think you will struggle to get through.
So this is a question, Parshwa, you'd like to take on how any tips for clearing the first few papers like the CM ones, the CM papers.
So, like like even Nikesh mentioned, even I mentioned earlier. So it's all about understanding the concepts and practicing. So when you study it, it's CM papers especially are all about sums more than theory. So it's very important for you to practice the paper, like the sums which are there in your book, and also the past papers. So past papers help you understand, what kind of questions are asked, what's the trend. So it's very critical to understand what knowledge sets is the institute going to test when it comes to the papers. So yeah, practicing will help you clear the CM papers, I feel.
There's a question on someone doing an architecture course, Khushi, right? So again, not really very sure, Khushi, but I think whatever you signed up for, I would just try and advise that please try and complete it. You can definitely pursue your actual studies simultaneously or after that. But since you've almost completed 60% of a particular course, I would try and recommend that please go ahead and at least complete that. No knowledge goes waste in the long run, right? So I'm sure even whatever you studied as part of your architecture course will somehow come in handy in the future as well. Actuarial as a profession is really great. You can definitely sign up for it, but I would just say that try and do it in kind of in sync with your current course that you're already pursuing. I think
Shivansh, do you have any question? Shivansh has raised his hand.
Yeah.
not really. I think
Okay.
let's move on. So you want to move
Yeah.
on to the next section quickly?
I think the next is now a quick fun round. And in the so Riddhi, do we have time?
Yes, yes, we do have time.
Okay, so we'll very quickly, play a fun round, and the topic for that is pi. We all know the importance of pi, be it our studies that we've done or the actuarial exams if you've started taking those. So let's have some fun with pi. So, does anybody know when do we have the pi day?
Is there a pi day?
Is there a pi day? Yeah, first question, and if yes, when? Great.
14 March.
That is a good one, Yatish. So thank you. Let's get on to our fun round. We have a poll for you, so would ask everybody to share your answers. So we have the questions here. So the first one, what are the first 5 digits of pi? And that should be an easy one for all of you, I guess. I'm sure all of you, everybody present here would have used pi in some calculation, whether in school or college.
I thought it was
So,
only 3.14.
oh, okay, so you can answer using poll.
Mhm.
Riddhi, do we have people responded?
Yes.
So maybe we can see the answer. So the correct answer is 3.1415. I think Shalini, you mentioned the correct answer here.
Yep.
And Parshwa is here to correct me if I'm wrong.
Mhm.
I'll rely on your actuarial expertise and knowledge. Moving on to the next one. The next question is, which of the following is not a common approximation of pi? Okay.
I think many people are getting this correct.
Yes, I see everybody knows what the correct answer is. Good. Yeah, perfect. So the correct answer is 3. Oh, Nishant is mentioning he's submitted all the answers already. But we'll go over the next question quickly. So the next question is, pi is a dash number. Let's see the question. The options are rational, integer, irrational, whole.
Irrational for me always. We move on.
Yes, let's move on to the next one. What is the approximate circumference of a circle with a diameter of 10 units? Ten pi is the
Yeah.
right answer. That's good. So moving on to the next one. Pi is used in which mathematical formula?
Just need to be attentive. That's it.
Yeah.
Yes, circumference of a circle is the right answer. So the last one here is, and actually the simplest one, what is the mathematical symbol of pi? Yes, pi. Rajansh, you've mentioned
Yeah.
it correctly. So this is the mathematical symbol. And yeah, so we're done with our fun round, and I hope you all enjoyed it and learned a bit as well. So, any final questions from all of you regarding pi or otherwise?
Okay, I think we are good.
Okay, yeah. So, Riddhi, if you don't have any further questions, I think good to wrap up.
All right then. Thank you so much, Bani, and the speakers, Mr. Nikesh and Mr. Parshwa. It was really a very insightful session. And as we draw this edition of Saturday Summit to close, we thank all the participants for the greater engagement and participation as well. So, thank you for your engagement, and we look forward to more sessions ahead. Have a great weekend. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Riddhi. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Riddhi.
Thanks, Nikesh. Thanks, Vishwa. Bye.
Bye.